In the year 2084, the world had transformed into a blend of dazzling technological advancements and lingering echoes of the past. Cities had risen to unimaginable heights, with towering skyscrapers made of transparent materials that changed color with the time of day, and vast networks of green spaces woven throughout. Personal transportation had evolved into sleek, autonomous pods that zipped through the air, eliminating traffic and pollution. Artificial intelligence had woven itself into every aspect of daily life, making routines more efficient and seamless. Houses were smart, responding to the residents' moods and needs. Virtual reality had advanced to the point where people could step into any environment or time period they desired, blurring the lines between reality and imagination. Living in this future, I found myself both awed and nostalgic. I lived in a compact, eco-friendly apartment in one of the floating neighborhoods that drifted gently above the city. Each morning, my AI assistant, Luna, would gently wake me with a tailored sunrise simulation and a briefing on the day ahead. She was more than just a virtual helper, she was a companion, her personality evolving to suit my tastes and preferences. One morning, Luna alerted me to an unusual message. It was encrypted and marked with a symbol I hadn't seen in decades, a small, crescent moon intertwined with an ancient oak tree. Intrigued, I asked her to decode it. "Message decrypted," Luna announced. "It's from someone named Dr. Evelyn Carter. She claims to know you from your past." Dr. Evelyn Carter was a name that sparked a long-buried memory. She had been a pioneering scientist in the field of quantum computing and time manipulation, someone I had worked with briefly before her mysterious disappearance many years ago. The message read, "Meet me at the old clock tower in the heart of the city at midnight. There's something you need to see." Curiosity and a tinge of apprehension filled me as I prepared for the meeting. The clock tower had stood as a relic amidst the modern skyline, a symbol of the old world's charm and resilience. As I arrived, the night air was thick with anticipation. The tower's ancient gears and hands, though silent, seemed to pulse with an unseen energy. Inside, the dimly lit space was filled with shadows and memories. At the center stood a figure, draped in a cloak that shimmered with a metallic sheen, blending seamlessly with the dark. She turned, revealing a face that bore the same ageless features I remembered. "Evelyn," I breathed, astonished. "How is this possible?" "Time is not what it used to be," she replied, her voice carrying a weight of secrets and revelations. "I've discovered a way to traverse its currents, but it's unstable and dangerous. There's something coming, something that threatens everything we know. I need your help." She led me deeper into the tower, where an array of complex machinery and holographic displays hummed softly. Images of past and future events flickered, merging and diverging in chaotic patterns. At the center of it all was a device unlike anything I had ever seen, its core glowing with a pulsing, ethereal light. "We must stabilize the temporal rift," Evelyn explained urgently. "If we don't, the fabric of our reality could unravel. But I can't do it alone. You have a connection to this timeline that is crucial." As I stared at the swirling vortex of time, a sense of destiny and dread washed over me. The choices we made in the next moments would determine the fate of the future. I stepped forward, ready to face the unknown, when suddenly, a flash of blinding light erupted from the core of the device. The room trembled, and the air crackled with energy. Evelyn grabbed my arm, her grip firm and reassuring. "Hold on," she shouted over the din, "this is going to be rough." The world around us dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. Time stretched and compressed, moments of my life flickering past like scenes in an old movie reel. Just as suddenly, the chaos ceased, and we found ourselves in a tranquil, sunlit glade. The glade was serene, with a crystal-clear stream winding through it and birds chirping in the trees above. It seemed to be a place out of time, untouched by the advancements and complexities of the world we had left behind. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of wonder and confusion. We are in a temporal nexus, Evelyn explained. A place that exists outside of regular time. Here, we can observe and influence different points in the timeline. She pointed to a series of floating orbs that shimmered in the air. Each orb contained a scene, a fragment of time, suspended in motion. As I looked closer, I saw moments from my own life, as well as events I had only read about in history books. Evelyn led me to an orb that was pulsing with an intense, fiery light. This is the point of divergence, she said. An event that will send shockwaves through time, altering the course of history if not corrected. I peered into the orb and saw a futuristic cityscape, much like the one I had just left. But something was wrong. The skies were dark, choked with smoke and ash. The streets were deserted, and the once vibrant city was in ruins. What happened? I asked, horrified. A catastrophic event, Evelyn replied. A result of unchecked technological advancement and a failure to address fundamental environmental and social issues. If we don't act, this future will become a reality. Evelyn reached into the orb, her hand passing through its surface as if it were water. We need to intervene at key moments to prevent this outcome. But it's not just about stopping one event. We need to influence multiple points in time, ensuring that humanity makes the right choices. As she spoke, a deep sense of responsibility settled over me. This was more than just a mission to save the future, it was a chance to guide humanity towards a better path. But the task seemed daunting. How could we, two individuals, change the course of history? You're not alone in this, Evelyn said, sensing my doubts. There are others like us, scattered across time, working to protect the timeline. We just need to find them and unite our efforts. With newfound determination, I nodded. Where do we start? Evelyn smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. We start by stepping back into the stream of time, one moment at a time. Together, we reached into the swirling orb and were pulled back into the flow of history. Our first destination was a pivotal moment in the early 21st century, a time when decisions about climate policy were being made. As we landed in the bustling halls of a global summit, we knew our journey was just beginning. And so, with the weight of the future on our shoulders, we began our quest to weave a new tapestry of time, one thread at a time. The summit hall was alive with the fervor of negotiations and debates. Delegates from every nation clustered in groups, their voices rising and falling in a cacophony of languages. Screens displayed real-time data on climate projections, emphasizing the urgency of the decisions being made. Evelyn and I slipped into the crowd, our presence unnoticed amidst the chaos. We need to find the key influencers, she whispered, her eyes scanning the room. The ones who can sway the outcome of this summit. As we navigated through the throng, we overheard snippets of conversations, recognizing the names of prominent figures who had historically played pivotal roles in climate policy. Our goal was to subtly guide their decisions, to nudge them towards choices that would lead to sustainable outcomes. Evelyn identified a group of scientists presenting critical findings to a panel of policymakers. This is it, she said. If we can ensure their data is taken seriously, it could change everything. We approached the group, careful not to draw attention. I recognized Dr. Emily Foster, a renowned climatologist whose work had been influential but often overlooked. Evelyn discreetly handed me a small device. Slip this into her presentation materials, she instructed. It will enhance her projections, making the data undeniable. As Dr. Foster prepared to address the panel, I moved closer, blending in with the assistants and aides bustling around. I managed to insert the device into her presentation laptop just as she was about to start. The screen flickered for a moment, and then her slides were imbued with a new clarity and impact. Dr. Foster's presentation captivated the room. The enhanced visuals and data projections painted a stark picture of the future, one that was impossible to ignore. The policymakers listened intently, their expressions shifting from skepticism to concern and, finally, to determination. After the presentation, a flurry of discussions ensued, leading to a unanimous agreement on a groundbreaking climate accord. The energy in the room transformed from one of division to one of collaboration and hope. Evelyn and I exchanged a triumphant glance, knowing we had succeeded in our first mission. But as we prepared to leave, a shadowy figure caught my eye. He was watching us intently from the corner of the room, his expression unreadable. I nudged Evelyn, nodding towards the man. "Who is that?" Evelyn's face grew serious. "A temporal enforcer," she murmured. "They monitor time travelers to ensure we don't interfere too much. If he suspects us, we could be in trouble." We tried to blend into the crowd, making our way towards an exit, but the enforcer followed. Just as we reached the doors, he blocked our path, his eyes cold and piercing. "You're not authorized to be here," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Step away from the summit." Evelyn stepped forward, her demeanor calm but firm. "We're here to prevent a greater disaster. You know what's at stake." The enforcer hesitated, his gaze flickering between us and the bustling room behind. "You've already changed enough. Any more interference and you could destabilize the timeline." A tense silence stretched between us, the weight of our actions hanging in the balance. Then, to our surprise, the enforcer sighed and stepped aside. "I'll allow it this time," he said, his tone begrudging. "But be careful. The timeline is fragile." We hurried past him, out of the summit hall and back into the stream of time. As the world around us shifted once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that our mission was becoming more dangerous with each step. Yet, the success we had just witnessed fueled our resolve. Evelyn turned to me, her expression determined. "Next stop, the year 2050. There's a crucial technological breakthrough that needs our intervention." As we braced ourselves for the next jump, I realized that each moment we altered brought us closer to a future of our own making. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with peril, but with Evelyn by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The year 2050 greeted us with a landscape vastly different from the one we had just left. Urban centers had grown into sprawling, interconnected megacities, where nature and technology coexisted in delicate balance. The air was cleaner, the streets vibrant with life, and a sense of optimism permeated the atmosphere. Our destination was a renowned research facility at the heart of one such megacity. Evelyn explained that a pivotal breakthrough in sustainable energy technology was on the brink of being discovered. However, historical records indicated that the research would be sabotaged, setting humanity back decades in its quest for clean energy. We arrived at the facility under the guise of visiting scholars. The building was a marvel of futuristic architecture, with walls made of living plants and solar panels, and robots efficiently maintaining the premises. Inside, the air buzzed with the excitement of innovation. Evelyn and I headed to the lab where Dr. Mateo Alvarez, a brilliant but somewhat reclusive scientist, was leading a team working on a revolutionary quantum fusion reactor. As we entered the lab, I noticed the intense concentration on the faces of the researchers, their hands deftly manipulating holographic interfaces and advanced machinery. Evelyn approached Dr. Alvarez, who looked up from his work with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "Dr. Alvarez," she began, "we're here to assist with your research. We've brought some insights that could accelerate your progress." He frowned, clearly wary of outsiders. "What kind of insights?" Evelyn handed him a data chip. "This contains advanced algorithms for stabilizing the reactor. It will help prevent the meltdown you're about to encounter." Alvarez's eyes widened, and he snatched the chip, quickly scanning its contents. As he did, the lab's main interface began to process the new data, displaying complex simulations and solutions. The room filled with murmurs of excitement and disbelief as the researchers watched the simulations unfold. "How did you get this?" Alvarez asked, his voice a mixture of awe and suspicion. Evelyn smiled enigmatically. Let's just say we're invested in the future of clean energy. As the team implemented the new algorithms, the reactor's core began to stabilize. The threat of a catastrophic failure diminished, replaced by the glowing promise of a sustainable energy source. We had averted the disaster, ensuring that the world would soon have access to a limitless, clean power supply. But just as we began to relax, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice announced a security breach. I turned to see the same shadowy figure from the summit, the temporal enforcer, flanked by a group of stern-looking operatives. "You've gone too far," the enforcer said, his tone icy. "You've altered the timeline in ways you cannot control." Evelyn stepped forward, her expression defiant. "We're making changes for the better. The world needs these advancements." "At what cost?" the enforcer retorted. "Every action has repercussions. You've already created temporal ripples that could unravel the fabric of reality." The operatives advanced, surrounding us. Evelyn looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "We have to go," she whispered. "Now." We turned and fled deeper into the facility, dodging through corridors and ducking into labs. The enforcer and his team were hot on our heels, their footsteps echoing through the halls. We reached a secluded maintenance area where Evelyn pulled out a small device from her coat. "This is a temporal displacer," she explained hurriedly. "It will transport us to another point in time, but it's risky." With no other options, I nodded. Evelyn activated the device, and the world around us warped and twisted, pulling us into a swirling vortex. As the facility and the enforcer vanished from sight, we were thrust into a new temporal stream, uncertain of where, or when, we would land. The disorientation was intense, and when we finally emerged, we found ourselves in a bustling market square, surrounded by a myriad of people from different eras. It was a temporal convergence zone, a rare and chaotic nexus where various timelines intersected. "We need to find a safe place to regroup," Evelyn said, scanning the surroundings. "And figure out our next move." As we navigated through the eclectic crowd, it became clear that our journey was far from over. We had saved one future, but the enforcer's words echoed in my mind. The timeline was fragile, and our actions had consequences that rippled through history. Together, we forged ahead, determined to protect the future while navigating the ever-shifting currents of time. Our quest was now a delicate dance, balancing the need for change with the preservation of reality itself. The path was fraught with peril, but we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, one moment at a time. As we pushed through the bustling market square of the temporal convergence zone, the atmosphere shimmered with a strange, ethereal light. The air was filled with a blend of ancient melodies and futuristic rhythms, creating an otherworldly symphony. People from different eras mingled, their clothes and languages forming a colorful tapestry of history. In the center of the square, a towering obelisk of glowing crystal radiated a gentle, pulsing light. It was a temporal anchor, a rare artifact that stabilized the convergence zone and prevented it from collapsing into chaos. Around the obelisk, vendors sold curious artifacts, enchanted amulets, shimmering scrolls, and bottles of liquid light. It was a place where time and magic intertwined seamlessly. Evelyn and I made our way to a small, secluded tavern at the edge of the square, its sign depicting a phoenix rising from flames. Inside, the air was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of spiced ale and roasting meat. We took a seat in a quiet corner, where we could talk without drawing attention. As we settled in, a figure cloaked in deep green approached our table. Her eyes were a luminous silver, and her presence exuded an aura of ancient wisdom and power. She introduced herself as Alara, a temporal mage who had long guarded the balance of time. "I sensed your arrival," Alara said, her voice a melodic whisper. "You have disturbed the currents of time, but your intentions are noble. The enforcers are not the only ones watching you. Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes sharp with curiosity. We need to protect the timeline, but we also need to make changes for the better. Can you help us? Elara nodded, her silver eyes gleaming. There are forces at play beyond your understanding. Magic and time are deeply connected. I can guide you, but you must be cautious. Each action you take resonates through the fabric of reality. She reached into her cloak and produced a small, intricately carved box. This contains a temporal shard, a fragment of pure time energy. It can amplify your ability to navigate the timeline and protect you from temporal disruptions. Use it wisely. I took the box, feeling the warmth of the shard within. Thank you, Elara. We won't let you down. With our newfound ally, we prepared to leave the tavern when a sudden hush fell over the room. The door creaked open, and the enforcer entered, his eyes scanning the crowd. He had tracked us even here, to this nexus of magic and time. Elara stepped forward, her presence commanding. You will not harm them here, she said, her voice ringing with authority. This is a place of sanctuary. The enforcer hesitated, his gaze meeting Elara's. For a moment, the air was thick with tension. Then he nodded reluctantly. This isn't over, he warned, before turning and leaving the tavern. We must move quickly, Elara said, turning back to us. The enforcers won't give up easily. She led us out of the tavern and towards the obelisk. As we approached, the crystal's light grew brighter, enveloping us in its glow. Elara raised her hands, chanting in an ancient tongue. The obelisk responded, opening a portal of swirling light. Step through, she instructed. This will take you to a safe point in the timeline where you can regroup and plan your next steps. Evelyn and I exchanged a glance, then stepped into the portal. The sensation was unlike any time jump we'd experienced, a blend of warmth and energy that tingled through our bodies. We emerged in a tranquil forest, the sounds of birds and rustling leaves filling the air. Elara appeared beside us, her form shimmering. This is a protected time, a place where you can rest and strategize. Remember, the temporal shard will guide you. Use its power wisely. With that, she faded away, leaving us in the serene embrace of the forest. We set up a small camp by a crystal-clear stream, the tranquil environment a stark contrast to the chaos we had left behind. As we sat by the fire that evening, Evelyn turned the temporal shard over in her hands, its glow casting a gentle light on her face. We have the tools and the knowledge, she said. But we need to be smarter, more strategic. The fate of the timeline depends on it. I nodded, feeling the weight of our mission more acutely than ever. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but we had allies and newfound powers to aid us. Together, we would navigate the delicate balance of magic and time, striving to create a future where both humanity and the timeline could thrive. The night deepened around us, the stars above a glittering map of possibilities. As we planned our next move, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. We were guardians of time now, armed with knowledge, magic, and an unyielding resolve to protect the future. As dawn broke over the forest, the soft light filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Evelyn and I packed up our camp, feeling refreshed and focused. The temporal shard glowed faintly in her hand, a reminder of the powerful ally we now possessed. We need to identify the critical points in the timeline that still require intervention, Evelyn said, her eyes scanning a holographic map projected from the shard. There are key events that, if guided correctly, can secure a better future. Our next destination was a moment in the mid-21st century, a pivotal period for the development of artificial intelligence. Historical records indicated that a group of scientists working on a groundbreaking AI system had been targeted by a powerful conglomerate aiming to exploit the technology for nefarious purposes. Our goal was to ensure the AI's ethical use, preventing it from becoming a tool of oppression. We activated the temporal shard, and the forest around us blurred and twisted. When the world settled, we found ourselves in a sleek, modern laboratory filled with advanced computing equipment and holographic interfaces. The air hummed with the energy of innovation. Dar. Kamala Rao, the lead scientist on the AI project, was deep in conversation with her team when we arrived. We approached her cautiously, aware that time was of the essence. "Dr. Rao," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "We're here to help protect your work from falling into the wrong hands." Dr. Rao looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and skepticism. "Who are you?" "We're allies," I replied. "We know about the threat to your project. There are forces that seek to use your AI for control rather than progress." Dr. Rao's eyes narrowed. "And how do you know this?" Evelyn stepped forward, showing her the temporal shard. "We have knowledge from the future. Your AI can change the world for the better, but only if it remains in the right hands." Dr. Rao hesitated, then nodded. "What do you propose?" As we began to outline our plan to secure the AI's integrity, a sudden crash echoed through the lab. The doors burst open, and a group of armed operatives stormed in, their leader brandishing a device that pulsed with a dark energy. "Hand over the AI core," the leader demanded, his voice cold and authoritative. "Now." Evelyn and I moved to shield Dr. Rao and her team. "You'll have to go through us first," I said, my voice firm. The operatives advanced, but before they could reach us, the temporal shard in Evelyn's hand flared with brilliant light. The air around us shimmered, and from the light stepped Alara, her presence commanding and fierce. "Enough," Alara said, raising her hand. A wave of energy emanated from her, pushing the operatives back and disarming them. "You will not interfere with the timeline." The leader of the operatives snarled, but he and his team were unable to resist the powerful magic emanating from Alara. They retreated, vanishing into the shadows from which they had come. "Thank you," Dr. Rao said, her voice trembling with relief. "Who are you, really?" "We are guardians of the timeline," Alara replied, her voice gentle. "Your work is crucial for a better future. Protect it well." With the threat neutralized, we helped Dr. Rao secure her research, implementing additional safeguards to ensure its ethical use. The AI, now protected, would go on to become a cornerstone of societal progress, aiding in everything from environmental restoration to equitable resource distribution. As we prepared to leave, Alara pulled us aside. "The enforcers will not stop," she warned. "They believe in maintaining the status quo, regardless of the cost. You must be vigilant." "We understand," Evelyn said. "But we can't stop now. There are still more events to secure." Alara nodded, her silver eyes filled with concern and resolve. "Remember, you are not alone. The forces of magic and time are with you." With that, she vanished, leaving us once again to navigate the temporal currents on our own. Our next mission was already clear in my mind, a crucial diplomatic summit in 2065, where the seeds of a lasting global peace were sown but threatened by sabotage. The temporal shard glowed warmly in my hand as we activated it, the world around us dissolving into a swirl of colors and light. We emerged in a grand hall filled with delegates from every corner of the world, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. Evelyn and I exchanged a determined glance. We were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with knowledge, magic, and an unyielding resolve to protect the future. As the summit began, we stepped forward, ready to weave the delicate threads of time and magic into a tapestry of hope and possibility. The Grand Hall of the 2065 Diplomatic Summit was a marvel of architectural brilliance, combining the elegance of classical design with the cutting-edge technology of the future. Delegates from every nation sat around a massive circular table, holographic displays hovering above them, showcasing data and projections crucial for the discussions ahead. Evelyn and I took our places among the advisors, blending seamlessly with the throng of experts and diplomats. Our goal was to ensure that the peace accords, which would lay the foundation for global unity and cooperation, were signed without incident. However, we were keenly aware that forces opposed to such harmony would try to disrupt the proceedings. As the summit began, the tension in the room was palpable. Leaders presented their proposals, each one carefully crafted to address the myriad issues facing the world. But as discussions progressed, we noticed subtle signs of dissent and sabotage. Delegates who were known for their commitment to peace seemed unnaturally aggressive and uncooperative, their actions inconsistent with their past behavior. Evelyn and I exchanged a knowing glance. Someone was manipulating key figures, and we had to uncover the source before it was too late. Using the temporal shard, Evelyn subtly enhanced our perception, allowing us to see faint threads of dark magic intertwined with the delegates' auras. Following these threads, we traced the source to a figure lurking in the shadows, hidden behind a curtain at the edge of the hall. He was cloaked in a dark robe, his face obscured, but the aura of malevolence around him was unmistakable. We quietly approached the figure, careful not to draw attention. As we neared, he turned, revealing eyes that gleamed with a sinister light. "You are meddling in affairs beyond your understanding," he hissed. Before we could react, he raised his hands, and the air around us crackled with dark energy. Evelyn quickly countered with a protective spell from the shard, deflecting the attack. A fierce, silent battle ensued, the clash of magic sending ripples through the temporal fabric of the room. Realizing he was outmatched, the dark sorcerer attempted to flee, but we cornered him near an ornate pillar. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded. "What do you stand to gain from disrupting peace?" He sneered. "Chaos breeds opportunity. There are those who profit from war and discord. My masters will ensure the world remains in turmoil, ripe for their control." With a swift motion, Evelyn cast a binding spell, trapping the sorcerer in shimmering chains of light. "You will no longer interfere with the timeline," she said firmly. We dragged the sorcerer to the center of the hall, revealing his treachery to the assembled delegates. Gasps of shock and outrage filled the room as the truth of the manipulation came to light. The revelation galvanized the leaders, uniting them against a common enemy and renewing their commitment to the peace accords. With the dark influence removed, the discussions proceeded smoothly. Agreements were reached, compromises made, and by the end of the summit, the historic Global Unity Accord was signed, heralding a new era of cooperation and progress. As the delegates celebrated their achievement, Evelyn and I slipped away, knowing our work was far from over. The timeline was secure for now, but the enforcers and their allies would continue to pose a threat. We exited the grand hall into the cool night air, the cityscape of 2065 sparkling with lights. The temporal shard pulsed in my hand, a reminder of the journey ahead. "What's our next move?" I asked Evelyn. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the determination and hope that had brought us this far. "We need to gather more allies, strengthen our resources. There are still critical moments in history that need our intervention." As we prepared to activate the shard once more, a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. Ilara, the temporal mage, had returned. "You have done well," she said, her voice warm with approval. "But a great challenge lies ahead. The enforcers are planning something catastrophic, an event that could unravel the very fabric of time." Her words sent a chill through me. "What do we need to do?" Ilara handed us a scroll, its surface shimmering with ancient runes. "This will guide you to the nexus of eternity, a place where all timelines converge. There, you must prevent the enforcers from executing their plan. But be warned, the journey will test you in ways you cannot imagine." With the scroll in hand and Ilara's guidance, we activated the shard, the world around us dissolving into a vortex of light and energy. Our destination, the nexus of eternity, where the ultimate battle for the timeline awaited. As the light enveloped us, I felt a surge of resolve. We were guardians of time, armed with magic, knowledge, and an unyielding will to protect the future. No matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, determined to weave a tapestry of hope and possibility for all of humanity. The journey to the nexus of eternity was unlike any we had undertaken. As the temporal shard activated, the world around us twisted into a dazzling array of colors and shapes, each representing a different timeline and possibility. We were caught in a whirlwind of time and space, with glimpses of past and future flashing by in an overwhelming spectacle. When we emerged, we found ourselves in a vast, surreal landscape where time itself seemed to pulse and breathe. The sky was a swirling tapestry of stars and galaxies, and the ground beneath us shifted with each step, as if composed of liquid light. In the center of this otherworldly realm stood the nexus of eternity, a towering structure of interwoven temporal energy, its core glowing with the power of infinite timelines. Ilara's scroll guided us forward, its runes glowing brightly in response to the proximity of the nexus. As we approached, a sense of urgency filled the air. The enforcers were already there, gathered around the nexus's core, their leader chanting an incantation that resonated with dark energy. "We have to stop them now," Evelyn said, her voice determined. We rushed forward, the temporal shard in Evelyn's hand blazing with light. The enforcers turned to face us, their expressions a mixture of surprise and anger. Their leader, a formidable figure cloaked in shadows, raised his hands to unleash a torrent of dark magic. Ilara appeared beside us, her presence a beacon of hope. "Focus on the nexus," she instructed. "Disrupt their ritual and restore balance." With Ilara's guidance, Evelyn and I channeled the shard's energy into the nexus. A blinding beam of light shot forth, striking the core and sending shockwaves through the fabric of reality. The enforcers reeled back, their dark magic faltering under the onslaught of pure temporal energy. The leader of the enforcers snarled, his form flickering as he fought to maintain control. "You cannot stop us," he hissed. "The timeline will be ours to command." Ignoring his threats, we intensified our efforts, the shard's power resonating with the nexus. The structure responded, its energy weaving through the air and countering the enforcer's dark incantations. As the balance began to tip in our favor, the leader of the enforcers unleashed a final, desperate attack. A wave of dark energy surged towards us, but Ilara stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing with determination. "Not today," she declared, casting a protective barrier around us. The dark energy shattered against her shield, dissipating into harmless sparks. With a final burst of power, we directed the shard's energy into the heart of the nexus. The core pulsed and expanded, releasing a wave of temporal light that enveloped the enforcers, erasing their dark influence from the timeline. The leader's form disintegrated, his defiant scream echoing into oblivion. As the light faded, the nexus stabilized, its energy harmonizing into a gentle, soothing glow. The chaotic landscape around us began to settle, transforming into a serene expanse where time flowed smoothly once more. "We did it," Evelyn said, her voice filled with awe and relief. "The timeline is safe." Ilara smiled, her expression one of profound gratitude. "You have done more than protect the timeline. You have ensured a future where hope and possibility can thrive. The balance is restored, thanks to your bravery and resolve." With our mission complete, Ilara guided us back to the point from which we had begun our journey. The temporal shard, its task fulfilled, dimmed and settled into a gentle warmth, a testament to our success. As we returned to our original time, the world around us felt different, brighter, more hopeful. The impact of our actions rippled through history, shaping a future where humanity could flourish. Evelyn and I stood together, watching the dawn of a new day. "We've come a long way," she said, her eyes reflecting the journey we had undertaken. "But there's still so much to do." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. "We'll be ready for whatever comes next." With Ilara as our guide and the lessons we had learned, we knew we could face any challenge. We had become true guardians of time, protectors of a future filled with endless possibilities. As the sun rose, casting its golden light across the landscape, we stepped forward into a new chapter of our lives, ready to continue our mission and safeguard the timeline for generations to come.